Hey, my name's Matthew. You ever hear laughter that wasn't meant for your ears? I did right before bed. My daughter-in-law's voice, soft but sharp, mocking me like I was some broken man too slow to notice he'd been pushed out of his own family. They sold my silence for comfort, turned my son's heart cold. But now, she's the one at my door, tears in her eyes, begging to see the grandson she once used to shame me. Funny thing, though some doors don't open twice, the house felt hollow, not quiet hollow, like something had been taken out of it but left the shell behind. I moved slow, not because I had to, but because there wasn't no rush anymore. Retirement don't come with alarms or schedules, just silence. The kind of silence my daddy used to say, that's where the truth hides. He wasn't wrong. It used to be my home, mine and Clara's. Now, it's like I was just visiting. Since Jamal and Marissa moved in after their money trouble, the air changed. They smiled a lot too much, sometimes. But tonight, their laughter floated in like perfume sprayed from the other room. At first, I thought nothing of it. Young folks, maybe watching a comedy or talking to friends. But then I got thirsty. I stepped out the room, heading to the kitchen. My knees cracked louder than the old floorboards. The guest room door was cracked open. I paused without meaning to, just for a second. That's when I heard her, Marissa's voice, giggling on the phone. He's still shuffling around in them slippers like he owned the place, talking about back in my day like we asked. Girl, the only thing he's raising now is his cholesterol. She laughed so hard she wheezed. And I stood there, still, not a breath in me. My hand didn't even make it to the kitchen light. She kept going. I swear, if I hear one more story about the good old days, or how he fixed a leaky pipe in '72, I'ma scream. She imitated my bray. Limp, my drawl. My life turned into a punchline. I backed away, careful not to creak the floor. Glass of water forgotten. Pride crushed underfoot. I didn't cry. I laid there in the dark, eyes wide open, counting the bumps on the ceiling. The laughter kept echoing, long after it stopped. I remembered the check I gave Jamal for their car. Dipped into my retirement like it was nothing. Family first, I told myself. That boy was my heart. I sat on the porch once, telling him about how a man don't run from his responsibilities. He nodded like he heard me. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. Where did I go wrong? I stared at the walls, thinking on every time they brushed past me like I was part of the furniture. Every sigh when I asked a question. Every missed thank you. This wasn't sudden, it was a slow drip. And I'd been standing in the flood, pretending I wasn't wet. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm just tired. But I ain't stupid. I've been letting these little cuts stack up. Death by 1,000 paper slices. And I smiled through 'em like a fool. Mama used to say, a closed mouth don't get fed. And I've been starving for respect. Maybe I thought my silence was strength. Turns out, they saw it as weakness. I looked in the mirror, same face, but different eyes, duller, quieter. I touched my beard, gray creeping deep, and whispered, you used to be someone. My fingers brushed the edge of Clara's photo on the dresser. Her smile always felt like home. Tears threatened, but I swallowed 'em back. Couldn't give 'em that tonight. That night, I didn't sleep. I planned. The next morning, I moved through the house like I was wearing someone else's skin. I kept my eyes forward, my mouth shut, and my hands busy. I washed my mug twice, fed the dog even though he already had food. Just needed something to do that didn't involve looking at anybody, especially not her. Marissa walked by humming. Same smile on her face like last night never happened. Like the words she spat didn't mean nothing. I didn't say a thing. I just watched her, quiet. Studied her tone, her steps, how she switched when Jamal came near. She was good at keeping masks on. Too good. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. Not even the walls seemed to remember me. I'd built my whole life under this roof, painted every room, laid every tile. But lately, it felt like I was squatting in someone else's domain, a ghost in work boots. They'd been talking about the neighborhood barbecue for a week now. Marissa wanted to show off her vintage hostess vibe. Jamal didn't care either way. I figured maybe, just maybe, I could use it. Not for show, for memory. I had one photo in mind. By the time the sun dipped down, the backyard smelled like smoke, chicken fat, and store-bought potato salad. Folks gathered under string lights, laughing about whatever folks laugh about when they drink enough. I brought out that framed photo, me, Jamal, and Clara, his graduation day. My hand trembled just a bit, but I placed it on the food table like it was a centerpiece. I didn't say a word, just let it sit there. A quiet offering, a reminder. Marissa caught sight of it while fixing her plate. She laughed, tilted her head, and said to one of the neighbors, "That picture's older than his parenting." They cracked up like she'd told the funniest joke on earth. I picked up that frame, didn't say a word. Walked it right back inside. Didn't slam the door. Didn't glare. Just carried it back, like a man taking down a flag. Jamal saw. I know he did. But he looked away, grinning at something somebody else said. That boy got too good at ducking when it gets uncomfortable. Learned to fold himself into silence. I stayed out of the way after that. Cleaned the grill, threw out the trash. Let Marissa be the star. She glowed talking about her freelance gigs, dropping phrases like generational shift and outdated value systems. Folks nodded like they understood, like she was saying something wise. But I knew better. I thought, I gave him a foundation, she gave him a filter, and now he can't tell truth from convenience. Later that night, when the food was cold, and folks left with their paper plates and fake laughs, I sat alone in the living room with that photo in my lap. I turned it over in my hands, fingers pressing against the wood, like I was trying to pull my wife's warmth out of it. If you have no critics, you'll likely have no success. Malcolm said that, and it stuck. I wondered, had I stayed quiet too long? Had I let my role shrink down to a shadow on purpose? I pulled out an old notebook from the side drawer. Started writing. Not for them, for me. So I wouldn't forget who I used to be, what I stood for, who I raised my son to become. Legacy ain't about what you leave. It's about how you're remembered. And lately, I ain't been remembered right. As I closed the notebook, I heard their voices behind the thin bedroom walls. You always take his side, Marissa snapped. He's your father, not your obligation, she hissed. That sentence hit harder than anything I'd heard in my life, because it sounded rehearsed. Every Saturday, I woke up before the Sunday same old apron, same old bowl. I made pancakes with cinnamon, Clara's favorite. She used to say, love had a smell, and it smelled like this. Caden shuffled into the kitchen, hair tousled, dragging his dinosaur blanket like it weighed 100 pounds. Grandpa, he mumbled, climbing onto the counter stool. Mornin', buddy, I said, flipping the pancake just right. He sat there watching me, eyes blinking slow. Did Grandma teach you how to make these? I paused, smile creeping in. She sure did. Every Saturday morning. She said breakfast should feel like a hug. He giggled. That's funny. Before I could reply, the air changed. Marissa walked in with her phone in one hand and her eyes scanning the kitchen like a security guard. Pancakes again? She muttered. They're his favorite, I said gently. Well, he's got school Monday. He needs routine, not sugar, she snapped. Caden, go brush your teeth when you're done. We're running late. Caden didn't say a word, just looked down at his plate. I wiped my hands, left the kitchen. No fuss, no scene. Just that old, quiet ache wrapping around my ribs. By early afternoon, the heat had crept in, and Caden played outside with a toy dump truck, dragging it across the gravel path. I sat nearby, sipping on lukewarm coffee. Grandpa, he shouted suddenly, bright-eyed. Grandma used to say you're just good for leftovers. The words hit like glass, breaking in slow motion. I stared. What did you say? He laughed. She said it to Mommy, and Mommy told me. She said you don't do much now, just like leftovers. I couldn't speak, not at first. Caden, I said slowly, kneeling down. "Why would Mommy say that?" He shrugged, totally innocent. "She laughs when she says it." I nodded. "Go wash up for lunch. Okay?" He ran inside, and I sat there in that same spot, same coffee, only now it tasted bitter. Not because he repeated it, but because he believed it was harmless. That evening, the house filled with the scent of roast and cornbread, but I stayed upstairs. Didn't say I wasn't hungry. Didn't say anything. Jamal knocked on the door. "Dad, everything all right?" "I'm fine," I answered, but my voice betrayed me. "You sure?" "Yeah." He stood there for a second longer, then left. Marissa never came. Not a single word. I sat on the edge of the bed, notebook in hand, wrote the phrase down, each letter deliberate, just good for leftovers. Beneath it, I wrote, "If you let someone borrow yourself, dignity too long, they'll forget it's yours." My father's voice drifted into my head again, low and steady like a sermon. A man who don't speak for himself invites someone else to write his ending. Next morning, while the rest of them got dressed for the church picnic, I slipped on my old coat and picked up my keys. "You're not coming?" Marissa asked without looking up. "No." That's all I said. That's all I needed to. I drove without direction at first, just me and the silence. My hands knew where to go, even if my mind didn't. I ended up at that old park, the one Clara loved. I sat on a bench worn smooth by time, and just listened to wind, laughter, sneakers hitting the pavement, joy untouched by poison. In that space, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, clarity. If I don't teach my grandson who I am, I whispered to myself, they'll teach him who I wasn't. So, I started something. Quietly. I dug through boxes in the attic, old photos, birth certificates, letters Clara wrote me back when we were courting. I found the church programs from when Caden was christened, tucked it all in a binder, didn't say a word about it. Not to Jamal, not to Marissa, just worked in silence. Later that night, I came back home while the house slept. The porch light buzzed. A moth fluttered at the screen door. Inside, the living room was dark, except for one lamp left on. Then, I saw it. My notebook, sitting on the table, open. I walked over, heart quiet but pounding just the same. A line I wrote had been underlined. If you let someone borrow your dignity too long, they'll forget it's yours. And beneath it, in someone else's handwriting, just one thing. A small, simple question mark. I walked in from the park, feeling a heavier clarity than I'd ever known. The wind had cooled my face, but my mind burned with thoughts. I sank into my old armchair, looking at the pictures hanging on the wall, Clara. In Sunday dress, Jamal as a baby in my arms, smiles faded but still portraiture of memories. I closed my eyes and replayed Caden's words. Grandma used to say you're good for leftovers. That line echoed louder than the creak of floorboards behind me. I debated, confront her directly, face to face, or deliver something simpler, something she couldn't twist. My eyes opened, fixed on a blank sheet of paper on the side table. The clock ticked. Late. I picked up a pen and wrote slowly, respectfully, telling her how hurt runs deep, how silence cannot heal what's wounded by truth. I folded it neat, hands steady, even though my heart pounded. That night I stepped into their bedroom softly. She sat there, scrolling on her phone. I handed her the folded note. Voice. Quiet. Read this when you get a chance. She glanced. Smirked, thinly. In front of Jamal, she held it up, loud enough for the room to hear. He's just writing more of his old stories, she said. Jamal blinked, shoulders shift. He took her side, even though he didn't have to. I said nothing, let the walls swallow their words. She looked at me, eyes flat, and walked out. The damage wasn't loud, it settled into the corners. Later I sat by the window, the crumpled note in hand. I remembered Maya Angelou's voice in my mind. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. I rubbed that line against my skin. I thought of my mother, teaching me dignity. A man of worth does not beg respect. I smoothed the creases in the note, read and reread it. Then I began drafting something more formal, a letter that might see the light of day. I made lists of evidence, photos, receipts, small truths too sharp to deny. I tested the waters at breakfast the next morning. I said softly, "Some things deserve daylight." Marissa froze. Jamal shifted. I didn't push. I just watched how their faces moved, how tension clung in the kitchen air. I realized private pleas were weak in a world built on noise. Maybe public shame, the kind that leaves a mark, would be what I needed to reclaim my voice. When I finally closed the drawer with the draft letter tucked inside, I crawled into bed, but sleep didn't come easy. Late at night, my phone buzzed. Jamal's message lit the screen. "Why are you writing to Mom about this?" The message I thought was private had already begun its ripple. I woke before dawn, sunlight just kissing the edges of the blinds. My mind replayed last night. Jamal's message, Marissa's tone, that mocking laugh. It pressed against my chest, like a weight I couldn't drop. I moved through the kitchen making coffee, the steam rising slow. I sat on the porch, sipping bitter grounds, thinking on boundaries I never knew how to draw. My father never taught me that. Silence always seemed safer, but safe got me here. Silence is not peace. It's just a pause that lets the darkness settle. I remembered Baldwin. "You have to go the way your blood beats." That line stung truth. I knew what I needed to do. Speak, but with calm, not fury. Speak in a way that can't be ignored. That evening, I asked Marissa to come outside. The sky hovered between gold and dark. She joined me warily. I spoke clear. The way she dismissed me, used Caden's voice against me, and rewrote my past must stop. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just laid the line. If she couldn't grant basic respect, I'd step back, not out of cowardice, but necessity. She laughed flat, sarcastic. "So you're quitting being grandpa now?" she said, loud. Words landed heavy. Jamal walked out from inside, paused, looked between us. He heard enough. I turned to him and repeated what I'd told Marissa. Calm, precise, without emotion. He flinched, caught. Marissa sneered. "Maybe if you'd been a better father, you wouldn't beg for respect now." That blow hurt more than any before, but I didn't betray myself. I walked inside and placed the spare key on the work. Countered, "Never mind the looks." I told Jamal, "This house was supposed to be a home, not a battlefield. I'll stay with my brother for a while." I packed light, just essentials. Caden came to me, eyes wide. "Grandpa, are you going to the stars like Grandma?" he asked. I knelt and held him. "Nah, baby, I'm stepping out the noise so I can hear my own thoughts." Marissa watched in silence, caught off guard. As I walked to my car, Jamal ran after me, holding the old photo from graduation. "Why now, Dad?" he asked. I opened my mouth to answer, knowing this time I did it for myself, not for them. I showed up to Jamal's birthday cookout out of respect, that's all. Not for peace. Not to patch things up. Just respect for the man who still called me Dad, even if it came out less often lately. The backyard was filled with folding chairs, laughter, and that heavy kind of joy where everyone's performing. Marissa's side of the family was there, cousins, aunties, folks I didn't know well but recognized by their glances. Polite nods, some stiff handshakes, and a few who looked right through me like I wasn't even standing there. Caden ran up and hugged my legs like I'd never left. That boy always softens the sharp edges. But even then, I caught the looks, quiet whispers, snickers that trailed behind my back when I walked by the drink table. I knew that tone hurt it. Growing up, in rooms I wasn't supposed to be in, they were talking, and I'd bet my last dollar Marissa was doing the pouring. I stayed composed, sat in a chair off to the side, ate my ribs slow, watched the charcoal smoke rise, trying to ignore the sideways stares. Then came the moment, a toast. Jamal stood, thanked everyone, raised his glass. Then Marissa slid in like it was her stage. She grabbed the mic and said, "Let's hear it for my husband who still puts up with old men acting like wounded kings." Laughter. But it wasn't joy, it was sharp. I sat there, still holding my plate. My hands didn't shake, but something inside me did. She kept going. And hey, not everybody earns Grandpa of the Year if they skip family dinners, right? The silence hit harder than the words. I looked straight at her. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. Caden's voice cut through the mess. Why's everybody laughing at Grandpa? Nobody answered. I stood up, walked over slow, and took the mic. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't slam anything. I don't do disrespect, I said, especially not when it's dressed up as jokes. I turned to the crowd. You don't get to laugh at a man's dignity and still expect his presence like nothing happened. Not anymore. I handed the mic back. Walked inside. I went straight to my room. Packed the rest of my clothes. Didn't take much. Left the photo albums. Those were memories they didn't earn the right to touch. Wrote a letter, sealed it, and placed it on Jamal's dresser. Caden came in, wide-eyed. You leaving again? I bent down, hugged him tight. I'll see you when the air's clean again, all right? He didn't cry, just held on a little longer than usual. I walked to the truck. Jamal caught up, clearly torn. Why are you making this worse? He asked. I didn't respond, just looked at him with everything I couldn't say out loud. Back in the yard, laughter was gone, replaced with murmurs and eyes darting. Some folks pulled Marissa aside. A few shook their heads. Caden ran back inside. Found the letter. Couldn't read it yet, just held it to his chest, like it was a piece of me. Later that night, Jamal finally opened it. When your love becomes a place where I have to defend myself daily, that's no longer home, that's war. That morning, Elias stopped by my porch with a frown on his face. They talkin', Matthew, he said quietly. Rumors spreading through the neighborhood, some old debt, some misstep I never made. Silas confirmed the same at church earlier. Whispers in doorways, phone calls behind closed doors. It struck me like a blow. Lenora was now controlling the story beyond my walls. In our community, reputation is everything. A man's name carries weight heavier than titles. When your name is soil, everyone treads lightly. To have that undercut feels like betrayal. Not just by family, but by the place I thought I belonged. I sat at the table, staring at the silence of my home, realizing I couldn't remain quiet anymore. I called Torrin Hale first, his voice steady. Your name can defend your name. Truth with proof is your strongest weapon. So I gathered old letters from Clara, receipts, church bulletins, photos with neighbors, testimonies from community members who knew me before she could frame me. I drafted a public statement, no names, but clear. For those rewriting my life. For those editing out memory. This is my side of the story. A friend warned, they'll strike back harder. I answered, they already have. At the community center that evening, Lenora rose in front of a small crowd and smoothed it over. I heard he abandoned his son back then. Didn't support his education. Didn't even volunteer at church. Maybe folks around here forgot that he wasn't always present. Jamal flinched. I held back inside, absorbing the sting, like a man bracing wind. I let the stories roll. I weighed my response. Was this the moment to fight or retreat? Later that night, I released my own version. Statement, proof, and a short video. I reached out to Daphne Reed, asked her to air my side. On camera, I showed the receipts, the church programs listing me, letters from neighbors writing they'd seen me coach youth and help in meals. I held up the graduation photo from Chapter 2. Ended with, you can try to erase me, but truth breathes louder than rumor. Lenora saw the post. The narrative started to shift. Late that night, my phone buzzed. An anonymous text. Nice try, but someone always has dirt on everyone. My heart hammered. I typed back, bring it. I've been waiting for you to show your hand. The knock came just after sunrise, sharp but not rushed. I knew that knock. It was Jamal. I opened the door, and there he stood, eyes darker than I remembered. like sleep had been avoiding him. He didn't say much, just, "Can we talk?" I stepped aside. He came in slow, like the weight on his back wasn't something physical. He sat on the edge of the couch, rubbing his palms together like he was trying to scrub off guilt. I waited, let the silence work. "I came to ask about the letter," he said, voice dry, eyes locked on the floor. "But I saw it. This wasn't just about that letter." When he finally looked up, he whispered, "I think I've been lied to." He told me about 2 nights back, came home early, heard Marissa in the kitchen on the phone. She didn't hear him. She said, "Delete those photos. We can't let anybody flip the story. We need folks on our side." He froze, said he didn't want to believe it, but he felt something crack inside. She brushed it off. When he asked, told him, "I'm just protecting us. People twist things." But his gut wouldn't let it go. He remembered the drawer. The one she always told him was for junk mail and receipts. He opened it. In the back, an envelope. My handwriting. Inside, birthday cards from me, never opened. Letters I'd written when I hadn't heard from him. Words he never got. He said his knees buckled. Then he looked at me and asked, "Did you ever mean to walk away from me?" I didn't blink. I said, "Jamal, I never walked away. I kept showing up. Y'all just stopped answering the door." He looked like somebody had knocked the wind out of him. I didn't go off, didn't raise my voice. I told him about my own daddy. How back in the 80 seconds, when folks tried to drag his name through the dirt, he told me, "Let 'em talk. If the truth don't reach their ears, it still stands tall in silence." I said, "You know what's right. Whether you act on it, that's up to the man you see when you look in the mirror." He nodded, slowly. You could see the storm behind his eyes. "I ain't ready to choose," he said. "But I ain't blind no more." He got up and walked out. This time, I didn't stop him. Later that evening, while I was folding laundry, I imagined how things looked at their house. Marissa probably laid it on thick, sweet talk, soft voice, like nothing happened. He watched her different now, ate quiet, said nothing. She asked him, "You still trust me, right?" He said, "I'm learning to trust myself first." Then he walked out back, called Caden with him. They sat on the patio steps. Caden looked up at him, all serious. "Why don't we go see Grandpa tomorrow?" Jamal didn't say a word. He just nodded. Around 10, my phone rang. Daphne Reed. Her voice was calm but clipped, like she was warning me without saying too much. "You might want to be ready," she said. "I think your truth's about to be tested publicly." I stared at the ceiling for a second. Then I said, "Truth don't shake me, Daphne. But lies pretending to be love, that's where I draw the line." Daphne's call came just as dawn cracked through my curtains. She said they'd scheduled Family Unity Day at the community center, a gathering to honor reconciliation. I nearly refused. Too many times I'd walked into rooms ready for healing and left bleeding inside. But when she mentioned Jamal and Caden would be there, something tugged me forward. I spent the morning remembering every wound, every moment I'd refused to shrink. I dressed in clean clothes Sunday best and slipped my wife's picture into my jacket pocket. Before I left, I whispered to myself, "Sometimes to rise, you gotta return to where you fell." When I arrived, the center was alive. Music, children running, neighbors greeting one another. Some came right up to me, offering quiet hugs and gentle praises. Others nodded from across the room, as though they recognized me now by story. Then I caught movement near the stage. Jamal walking toward me, Caden close behind. The boy burst forward, launching into my arms, whispering, "Grandpa," in that voice only he had. The crowd watched, some with warmth, others with guarded eyes. Across the room, I saw Marissa, clutching a glass of punch, her posture rigid. I greeted friends, exchanged smiles, but avoided her for a moment more. That moment, Daphne stepped up to the mic. She told the crowd who I was: silent strength, a man misjudged, faith tested. She asked me to join her on stage. The room hushed, but then Marissa, shaken, walked up behind me. My heart pounded, but I stood firm. She lifted the mic and began, voice trembling. I'm sorry, Matthew. I manipulated. I lied. I pushed you out of your life, and I hurt my own family. I isolated you. I betrayed trust. She choked on tears, paused, let silence press. Then I walked to her, took her hand gently. Into the mic I spoke. Truth sets both the liar and the lied to free. Some in the crowd gasped, others nodded. The weight lifted, very little, but it lifted. The applause was tentative but real. Jamal came up beside me. We turned toward Caden. He looked between us and asked, "Can we all have dinner together like families do?" A murmur of laughter. I smiled, said, "Only if you want dessert too." He grinned wide. The distance between us cracked. When the event ended, I stepped outside into the night. I sat alone under lamplight, stars overhead. I held my wife's photo and whispered, "I kept my promise." After a moment, Jamal joined me. We sat in silence that felt whole. He finally said, "I'll be by tomorrow. With breakfast." I nodded, hope in my chest. As I looked up at the sky, I felt it hurt in my bones, the healing I thought lost. Funny thing about healing, it never comes from the ones who hurt you most, but from the ones you choose to forgive anyway.